I am a big supporter of President Trump. Obviously, I loved him as a president. His policies worked. America First is the only way out of the mess we're in. And he loves Arizona. He loves our campaign because he knows it's grassroots. And we have a big movement afoot in Arizona. So last week he said, I love Kari, let's endorse her again. I'm not gonna take orders though from an illegitimate president like Joe Biden. Arizona is gonna do things the Arizona way.
The person you just heard from is Arizona's Trump-endorsed right-wing gubernatorial candidate. Her name is Kari Lake, and if you notice that graphic that Fox Business was showing, she appears to be the Republican frontrunner in the primary. Now, notably, she called President Biden illegitimate, essentially regurgitating propaganda from Trump regarding the outcome of the 2020 election. Now, should we be concerned? I would argue, yes, we should be concerned because recent polling indicates that an unfortunate majority in the Republican Party believes all sorts of unfounded claims and conspiracy theories. And she appears to just be preaching to the choir, essentially telling the voters what they want to hear. And she also put out a list of all the terrible things she would do as governor of Arizona, which we can get to in just a minute. But Cenk, you drew attention to this story for us, and I can understand why.
Yeah, look, chaos is here. If she wins that race, we're gonna have a United States governor say, I'm not listening to the president and I'm not listening to the federal government. What is that? I mean, I guess it's a form of secession. So then are the blue state governors gonna say then if Trump or another Republican wins, okay, we're now not following the orders of the federal government? How many more red states will say they're not following Biden anymore? This is total madness. This is the breakdown of the union. And this is what the Republicans wanted. This is what they pushed for. They've been trying to kill our democracy the whole time. And you can't get through to them. They think, oh yeah, if the government doesn't work together, that's great. If the states don't listen to the federal government and there's anarchy, that's great if it's a Democratic president. If it's a Republican president, then then those governors are traitors and they should be hung up and et cetera, et cetera. It's just 52% of Republicans believe that Democrats are running a child sex trafficking ring. That Democratic leadership is pedophiles. 52%, guys, polls are accurate. I'm neck deep in politics. I know everybody, bitches about polls. And sometimes a poll is a little off here or there. Generally, they are definitely accurate. That is a majority of Republicans. And by the way, 30% of independents, 30% of independents think that Democrats are running a child sex trafficking ring. Combined, that's about 100 million Americans who believe that the Democrats are doing a ring of pedophilia and that's their objective. And now you got people who are leading in their race saying, if I get elected, I'm not even gonna listen to the Democratic president. This is total and utter chaos, anarchy. It's ripping this country apart. And the Democrats can't even freaking counter as the Republicans are on roughshod destroying this country.
I'm curious how this would actually play out, right? And look, you look at how well she's performing in the Republican primary, and Arizona still is a right-wing state for the most part. There's a good chance that she could become the next governor of Arizona. And I'm just curious how it would really play out, right? Because it's one thing to use that kind of rhetoric. It's another thing to actually be elected into office and then try to carry out what she's suggesting here, which is completely ignoring laws that are, or directives, executive orders by the federal government. To play devil's advocate though, I'm curious what you think about this, Cenk. When Trump got elected, of course, he started implementing all sorts of anti-immigration policies. Almost immediately, you have the Department of Homeland Security and Border Patrol agents, ICE, rounding up people in communities that are known to have a disproportionate amount of migrants living in them. I remember that happened in like Van Nuys, California in the beginning of the Trump administration. And states like California started to implement these sanctuary state laws to protect the migrants against the federal government. Would you say that the left has a similar approach to what Kari Lake was suggesting here with Joe Biden?
With the sanctuary cities?
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't think so. I think that those cities are basically saying, look, we're going to enforce our local laws. I mean, if there's a federal law that they are violating, then I think that's a different situation. But basically, my understanding of sanctuary cities is saying that they're going to enforce their local laws. So if it's in direct contradiction of a federal law where the federal government says, give me those immigrants, and the local municipality says, no, I will not, I will ignore your federal order, then that's a different case. But I don't believe that's what's happening with sanctuary cities.
So I want to get to what Kari Lake said about her platform and what she's planning on doing once she gets elected, because auditing the election is part of it. Let's take a quick look.
Obviously, we need to take care of what's happening on the border, secure the border, stop the drugs from coming in. No Democrat, no independent, no Republican wants their kids to get their hands on this deadly fentanyl. We have a priority with our election. When I get elected, we are going to go through that forensic audit, and we're going to fix every problem we have with our elections down here and make sure they are secure and honest for our future generations in every election going forward. We're going to make sure that we fund the students in Arizona, not the institutions, so that parents have control of what school they send their kids to and that our kids are prepared for all the opportunities. We would like to lower taxes as well. We're going to start with the sales tax because that affects every single Arizonan, and especially under Joe Biden's inflation, we need to make things more affordable any way we can.
So she wants to waste more of the state's resources in auditing the 2020 election. If the people of Arizona are into that, have at it. It is a waste of resources. I mean, how many times are you going to audit the 2020 election? Trump lost. I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but I mean, again, how many times do we have to go through this? How many court battles did the Trump campaign need to lose because they had zero evidence of widespread voter fraud for his supporters to finally accept the cold, hard truth? He lost the election. If he wasn't such a moron in how he responded to COVID, there was a good chance that he could have won. When it comes to these battleground states, it was actually a pretty close race, but he totally bumbled, like he just ruined his chances of getting reelected. They refused to accept that. So you want to waste the resources? Great, have at it. But the other thing is, look, you guys, pay close attention, because the next thing that Republicans, in my opinion, will succeed in doing is eliminating public schools. They're on the warpath. They're already succeeding in funneling money out of the public education system and into private institutions. She was very clear about how she intends on doing that. And it's gonna be a disaster for families who cannot afford to send their children to private schools. It might start off with a voucher program, and people might get hoodwinked into thinking, this is great, the government's giving me money so I can afford private education for my kids. But as soon as public education is no longer an option for people, you think the state governments, you think right-wing governments are gonna shell out money to help poor families send their kids to private schools? Please. Come on.
Look, I'm not even going to say it out loud, but there's a couple of things that a Republican candidate or president could do that would guarantee landslides for them. And if they just believe it, they don't even have to believe it, they just have to do it. A tiny bit of economic populism, they would rout the Democrats, because the Democrats are so corporate, so elitist, such liars, so weak, and then they would get their way. They would get their dictatorship. They would get all these things. But there's no talking to right wingers, Anna. So in Arizona, they did an audit led by a ludicrous right wing group. And even they came back and they're like, oh crap, it turns out Biden won, and pretty easily in Arizona. I mean, you want to audit the audit of the audit? What do you want? There's no evidence. But no, they're maniacs. They've been brainwashed by right wing media into being mindless zombies who are like, oh, Trump won, I like dictators, Trump won. What are you gonna, how am I gonna talk to the guy? The guy doesn't even understand facts or logic. So there's 100 million zombies in the country now who are like, oh, Tucker Carlson told me this. Okay, all right, I don't know. This is gonna end very, very poorly. And by the way, on sanctuary cities, it's simply the great majority of the time, the police saying, no, we are not going to ask for documents or immigration status when we're investigating crime, because we're afraid that that would discourage people from reporting crimes like murder, rape, robberies, etc. And that's what a sanctuary city means. It sounds super like scary to the right wingers. Oh my God, they're hiding the immigrants, etc. No, they're actually largely trying to solve crime.
Right, it's the refusal of local law enforcement to cooperate with the federal government's requests pertaining to undocumented immigrants. So, which look, I haven't been critical of that because I think that they should be able to do that, especially when they have a good reason in regard to making the environment safer for people to feel free to come and report actual crimes that they're facing. But I just feel like all the nonsense that we heard from Biden, we were right from the very beginning. Oh, my God, we're gonna unify the country. We're gonna unify the country. There's no unifying with this. Okay, platitudes, concessions to people on the far right is not going to unify the country. There's no way to placate them. There's no way that they ever want to work together. The only thing you can do is focus on what unites voters. And there's actually a lot of agreement among voters on bread and butter issues, which Biden could have focused on, hyper focused on, in order to bring voters together in support of candidates who actually make sense, who actually serve their best interests. But as you mentioned, Cenk, all we saw was weakness from the Democratic Party, and the chickens will come home to roost, both for the midterms and I suspect even for the 2024 election. And it's a damn shame because it empowers crazy people like Kari Lake. And I think it's likely that someone like her could be the next governor of Arizona. It's absolutely terrifying.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.